Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Precious Metals Summit is brought to you by Nucor Gold.
Are junior gold stocks on the verge of lighting the blue touch paper? I'm Paul Harris of Kitco Mining at the 2024 Precious Metals Summit in Beaver Creek, Colorado. And joining me today to hopefully answer this question is Frank Giustra, President and CEO of the Fury Group. Frank, welcome back to Kitco.
Thanks, Paul.
Frank, you seem to have been, you were quiet for quite a while, on hiatus maybe, and then you've burst back with involvement in Aris Mining, West Red Lake Gold, and more recently with Libero Copper. How did you spend your hiatus and why have you come back?
Well, I came back because once this business gets in your blood, it's a hard business to shake. It really is. It's an exciting business, even in difficult times. And I thought about leaving the business when it was quiet, in the last decade. But then I had to make a decision. It was our lease was coming up, and we had a whole floor of this tower in Vancouver. And my partner of 37 years asked me, said, "Are we going to renew the lease or are we going to retire?" And I thought, I just can't retire. So we renewed it. Then we thought, well, if we're going to renew it, we're going to have to get back into the business. So a couple of years ago, we brought in a whole team of people, younger people than ourselves, experts in capital markets, but mostly geologists and engineers. We have about 35 geologists, engineers in our office. And then we started to see the deal flow. And we're back in the business and we're super busy.
So you're here at the Precious Metals Summit, obviously. Are you here shopping?
Yes. We, our style of business is, in my personal track record, has been based upon building multi-asset mining companies. I think that single asset mining companies are going to continue to be orphaned. They're of no interest to institutional investors. So most of our work is M&A work, is to look for opportunities, start something that's smallish, and build it using what we call the buy and build strategy, which is building mines and acquiring projects and mines.
Now, most of the companies I mentioned during the introduction have operations in Colombia. Colombia's been very good to you over the years. What is it about Colombia that appeals to you so much?
Well, first of all, I've been going there for over 35 years, and I know the country well. I have a home there, and I've had lots of success in Colombia. And I think that Colombia is misunderstood. If you remember back to the days of the narcos and then the guerrilla warfare, which is now ended, Colombia was a no-go location. I always found that it was easy to do business there. It's the only country in Latin America that has never gone to a dictatorship. It's been a continuous democracy for a couple hundred years. It's got the rule of law. I've never had issues that I've had in other countries in Colombia. Always, in every country, you have community issues that you have to deal with, and we're really good at working with communities. So I feel comfortable there, and there's less competition because of this ongoing stigma about Colombia, which is completely unfair.
Okay, I'm hearing rumors at this event that you're also putting together a primary silver play in Argentina. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've my whole life I wanted to do a pure primary silver play. And I've never been able to pull it off because I haven't found the right asset. Because if you're going to do a primary silver play, those assets are very few and far between. They're hard to find. And we stumbled across one recently. It's in Argentina. It's about 50 million ounces of indicated at the moment at around 500 grams per ton, which is really high grade for primary silver play. Still open for exploration. I think we can increase those ounces with a robust exploration program. The company that had it, unfortunately, was going through a bankruptcy because of their other mining operations in Mexico and other places, and this opportunity came up. One of our guys is from Argentina, Joaquim, and he's been looking at this project for 15 years. And when he saw that it was available, he alerted us, and we just acquired it. It's going to be called Argento Silver. It'll probably start trading in early October.
Okay, I think to underline the point you made about the rarity of primary silver deposits, last week we saw an M&A transaction with First Majestic Silver buying Gato Silver, and I understand that was a very competitive process. What are your thoughts on that deal?
Well, I think, again, it's all about consolidation in this industry, and I think, it certainly, it's always made more sense to consolidate. Bigger is better. Size does matter in this industry in terms of institutional investors. So anything that consolidates this junior sector, I think, is good news. And I think this sector is in dire need of consolidation. You have way too many small developers, single asset companies that are getting absolutely no investor interest. They're spending most of their money on G&A. So if you think about, if you consolidated the industry, all that money that is currently going to G&A could be put in the ground. So in the Fiore Group, we are actively looking at playing a major role in the consolidation of the junior development sector. And we're doing it with a number of our companies that you're familiar with.
Now, gold is at US $2,500 per ounce. Do you think that will spur more M&A? And I want to couch that in the context of the deal announced yesterday, AngloGold Ashanti buying Centamin for £1.9 billion. Last night when I was looking at more at the details and the figures there, one very noticeable thing stood out. AngloGold stock is up 60% year to date. Centamin's is just up 20%. So there's potentially some companies have a good leverage in their share price to be able to do deals with.
Yeah. Well, it's always about the value of your currency in this business. You know, we've been in the M&A game for a very long time, and timing is everything. There are times where you should be looking at acquisitions where you're using your paper, and times where you should be building your business. Aris is a perfect example. That's our gold mining company in Colombia, which for a very long is still very, in my opinion, very undervalued relative to its peers. But it was grossly undervalued a couple of years ago. Half the price is trading at today, and there were M&A opportunities that we just had to say no. It's not the right time. We need to build first, get our valuation to a more reasonable value, and then you do the acquisition. So, I'm not surprised that, Anglo, made that move. But, again, this consolidation at this stage is happening at the very senior level. It still has to filter down to the junior producers and then the developers. And it's very much needed in both those sectors.
Now, I had the pleasure and privilege of visiting Aris's operations in Colombia about a month ago, Segovia and Marmato.
You went? Oh, yeah. Wonderful.
And they're well on the way to being a 400,000 ounce a year producer, hopefully get a re-rate there and be looking at doing some other interesting things. Now, with the gold price at $2,500, some gold stocks...
By the way, that's almost 500,000 ounces.
Sorry, 500,000, thank you. Some gold stocks are up 100% year to date, but there's a lot of variation across the board. Mm-hmm. Are we getting close to that tipping point where juniors are on the verge of a big breakout?
Much to my chagrin, it hasn't happened yet. I would have expected by now at $2,500 gold, and I actually did say this when gold was $1,800, I said once it breaks through the old high, it makes a decisive move into new territory, that this sector will pick up. It hasn't. And it's really, I've never seen a market where there's such disparity between the gold price and the mining equities. I've been doing this since 1978. And this is a very strange market. Investors for this sector, have completely disappeared. We get investment banks that are offering us, financings, but, they sign you up, then they go look for investors, and they don't exist. We end up having to place all of those shares ourselves with our own money, our friends, our family, our associates. Almost every deal I've done in the last 12 months, we've had to place the bulk of it because the bankers can't find the investors. It's really a very difficult market. I think it will change because always in any industry, when the profitability proposal gets interesting enough, and you think about it, why would you pay retail when you can buy wholesale? If you can buy a mining company that can consistently produce at $1,300, $1,400 all in, and gold's trading at $2,500, why pay retail when you can buy wholesale? That idea hasn't found its way to investors yet, but it will. Sentiments always change, and there are probably many reasons why it hasn't changed to date. I can only guess what those reasons are, but I think eventually, if gold stays where it is, or as I expect, will move a lot higher over time, I think that money will come back in the sector. But it's been really disappointing, really disappointing.
What do you think it will take for the juniors to get their day in the sun? Is it the gold price?
I think I think the gold price going higher, and I think consolidation. So, yeah, as I said earlier, you have a number of single asset companies out there that have zero sponsorship, zero institutional investor. One of our strategies, and you will see this in the coming months and years, will be to consolidate the better opportunities out there into single companies that have multiple assets, mines and development projects, much like we did with Gold Corp back in the old, 20 years ago, Endeavour Mining, 15 years ago, Leia Gold, which is now part of Equinox, Aris, again, started with a single mine. Now we've got 2 mines, plus a third one being permitted, which is very large. The objective is always to get to a production profile that institutions will be interested in, and where you can be in the indexes, because that's the only way you're going to get a proper valuation.
Now, apart from your own deals, Frank, have there been any deals in the past couple of years that you thought, wow, that was a smart move?
That's interesting. I can't think. You caught me off guard. I can't think off the top of my head.
Okay, now let's talk a bit more about the gold producers. We're starting to see margin expansion, but costs are continuing to increase. Will it take costs coming down and margins to really expand to get the generous back in, to really see that the benefit of the higher prices reflected in free cash flows, balance sheet, etc.?
Yeah, again, I'm surprised that with the margin that we're seeing today, and again, certain companies produce at different operating costs, but even at say $1,400, if you want to pick a number, and you got a $1,100 margin in there, that should be enough. And I'm surprised that most institutions haven't even began to look at this market yet. And I think eventually they will.
Okay, now with producers starting to become sort of quite wealthy and putting cash in their balance sheet, what do you think companies should do with that the cash they're generating?
Well, it depends again on the size and diversification of your asset base. I think that if you're big enough, dividends should be paid. Investors should be paid dividends. And mining companies should definitely be looking at accretive transactions, using their cash for accretive transactions. Now, the only ones we've seen so far are the majors, that have this enormous cash flow that are able to do that. But I think that has to filter down the food chain as well. And that's the only way that this is going to work out for investors.
I speak to a lot of the juniors that are here at this event, and despite the fact the gold's $2,500 per ounce, they still say it's very, very hard to raise money. There's no money out there. You mentioned in your comments as well, despite your background, your reputation, your network, you have to go to friends and family to fund what you're looking to do. How critical will this factor be going forward?
Well, I think it's really great if you're a buyer. Okay, if you're a buyer of assets, as we've discovered in the last year and a half, we've had a few acquisitions that we bought assets where hundreds of millions of dollars were spent developing these assets, these mines. Take West Red Lake, for instance. Almost to recreate what West Red Lake has today would cost about $700 million. We bought that asset for $6.5 million in cash, and 20% of this vehicle that we had. The silver deal, they spent 60 or 70 million US drilling this thing out, building a camp, building roads, everything. We bought it for $3.5 million in cash. So if you're a buyer, this is a wonderful time. If you're trying to finance a company, it's not very much fun. And I think that again, it will change, but during this period of when it's very difficult, I want to be very active in consolidating as many assets as I can possibly afford, and get ready for that next cycle.
So you're building a silver company. Are you going to build a new gold company outside of Aris, or will that all be?
Well, West Red Lake is not, in my opinion, will not be a single asset company forever. Next Gold, which is the old Treasury Minerals, is definitely not going to be a single asset company. And the idea is, again, to find amazing opportunities that are very solid financially. That the economics really work well and you're buying it for the right price. and then eventually putting them all together.
Do you have a potential date when the silver company will be a traded company, publicly traded?
First week of October, I think.
Also just a few weeks away.
Yeah. And again, it's a single asset company at the moment, much like Libero is a single asset copper company in Colombia. That is not the intention. The intention is we're going to build a silver company with multiple assets, and we're going to build a copper company with multiple assets.
Excellent. How do you think the rest of the year is going to play out in the gold and silver space?
With respect to the commodity or our sector?
Well, our sector, the commodity price.
I think that gold, which I follow very closely, I write about, I speak about, and I've been doing it for 25 years, is going a lot higher. Okay, you're going to see rates come crashing down. We're going to see a rate cut this month. There'll be several more before the year is over, and as the rates come down, the gold price is going to go up. Silver will follow gold to a certain extent, but silver, has other attributes. The industrial part of it. You see India and China importing record amounts of silver for their own purposes. There's talk of this solid-state silver battery by Samsung, which is more efficient, costs less, uses less materials. So I think silver always tracks gold, and during bull markets outperforms gold. So I think that they're going to move in tandem, and at some point silver will have a big bump.
Excellent. Well, Frank Giustra, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Paul, as always.
And there's plenty more to come from the 2024 Precious Metal Summit, so don't be afraid, hit that subscribe button. I'm Paul Harris, and this is Kitco Mining.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Precious Metals Summit is brought to you by Nucor Gold.